Welcome back. This is Wheelock's Latin Chapter 5. This week we're going to be covering first and second conjugation verbs, conjugating them in the imperfect and future tenses, as well as the ER adjectives, that is, adjectives that end in ER and their irregular nature. Quick review for us here. We did learn present tense personal endings back in Chapter 1. Those are OST, mus, tis, ent. Say them again, OST, mus, tis, ent. And those are the endings that you add to the stem of any verb in order to conjugate it in the present tense. And the translation, of course, is I, you, he in the first, second, and third person singular, or I should say in third person singular, it can be he, she, or it. And then the plural is we, you, they. So that's your translation. Let's see how we can apply this, because you're going to see these exact same endings. And I should probably remind you that the O in first person can also be M, O or M on rare occasions. And on this occasion, we're going to see where that pops in here. So let's see how this applies to imperfect tense. Now, the imperfect tense, of course, is a past tense. It's action that is happening in the past. We call it imperfect because it's incomplete. It's action that is ongoing in the past, as opposed to perfect tense, which we will get to in subsequent weeks. Perfect tense is action that's completed in the past. I loved, or I ate, I ran. But in this case, we're looking at imperfect tense, which is action ongoing in the past that was not completed at a particular time. So I was running, I was eating, I was singing. So this is imperfect tense. Let's look at the personal endings for imperfect tense. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Again, you've got the macron, the long mark over the A in second person singular and first and second person plural. So you kind of hold it out twice as long as you do the short A. So bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Now I just, as a chant, as a rule, we just say it really fast, just as a memorization technique. But bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. Bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. I'd encourage you to stop right here and just say it over and over again till you can get that memorized. Now, if you notice, all this is the prefix BA added to the endings you already learned. O, or M, in first person singular, S in second person singular, T in third person singular, mus, M-U-S, in first person plural, tis, T-I-S, in second person plural, and NT in third person plural. So when you add the BA to each of these, you end up with bam, bas, bat, bamus, batus, bant. So again, take the time here to memorize this. Now, how do we apply this to conjugating a first conjugation verb? Again, our paradigm verb, lado, ladari, ladawi, ladatum. And this, of course, means to praise. We're going to take that stem from the second principal part, ladari. We're going to drop the RE infinitive ending, and that'll give us our stem, lada. And to that, we simply add our imperfect endings. So we end up with laudabam, laudabas, laudabat, laudabamus. I'm a little bit ahead. There we go. Laudabatus and laudabant. This is the imperfect tense. Now, how do we translate these? Well, again, as I said, this is action that's ongoing in the past. So I was praising, you were praising, he, she, or it was praising, we were praising, you all were praising, and they were praising. This is the imperfect translation for laudo. Now, there are some variations on how you can translate the imperfect tense. You could say I was praising, I kept on praising, or I used to praise. Those are all adequate and appropriate translations for first person singular in the imperfect tense. Laudabas, you were praising, you kept on praising, you used to praise. Laudabat, he was praising, he kept on praising, he used to praise. And of course, plural, very similar. Lauda, bamus, we were praising, we kept on praising, we used to praise. Lauda batus, you were praising, you kept on praising, you used to praise. Laudabant, they were praising, they kept on praising, they used to praise. All right, here's another nuance here. You can translate an imperfect verb, in this case laudabam, as an action completed in the past, in this case praised, if it has an adverb that connotes the idea of ongoing action in the past. I often praised. Saipe laudabam, I often praised. In that case, praise can be appropriately translated as completed, but it has this idea of ongoing because you have this adverb saipe added to it. I often praised. All right. Now, that's basically imperfect tense. We're going to apply this exact same principle to the second conjugation. It works and functions exactly as first conjugation. There's no differentiation. Here our paradigm verb for advise or warn, moneo, moneri, monui, monitum. There's our stem, monet, and to that we add bombas bat, so we end up with monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebant. All right. And the translation, as you would imagine, ongoing action. In the past, I was warning, you were warning, he, she, or it was warning, we were warning, you all were warning, and they were warning. These are all imperfect translations. And again, the various nuances of the imperfect tense do apply as well. I was warning, I kept on warning, I used to warn. And I won't say all of these here, it's not necessary, but you get the idea. Same thing with the imperfect plural here. We were warning, we kept on warning, we used to warn. There we go. And of course, the same applies here for saipe monebant. They often warn, where you can translate it as a perfect verb with saipe. All right, so take the time to learn the imperfect because we're moving on now to future tense. Future tense, obviously this is action that is happening in the future. And our endings will look very familiar here. Again, we're just going to add to the personal endings, present tense endings, OST, must descent. We're going to add either a B, a BI, or a BU. And you end up with bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. Bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. And so some people use a mnemonic device to memorize these. It's just b, 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 boo. B, 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 boo. And it's awfully funny that kids really laugh when we do that, but you can memorize it however you like. But bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. And again, applying this to the exact same principles for conjugating in the first conjugation, we take that lauda stem and we end up with lauda bo, lauda bis, lauda bit, lauda bimus, lauda bitus, lauda bunt. There we go. And this, of course, translated in the future tense. I will praise, you will praise, he, she, it will praise, we will praise, you all will praise, and they will praise. And there are no real nuanced translations. This is pretty straightforward. Taking the second conjugation paradigm verb, moneo, moneri, and again, we'll take that stem, monet, and we'll add the ending. So it's monebo, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. And again, pretty straightforward translation. I will warn, you will warn, he, she, it will warn, we will warn, you all will warn, and they will warn. Take the time to memorize these future tense endings and how to conjugate them. I'd encourage you to practice it. The last thing we'll be looking at in Chapter 5 are special ER adjectives. If you'll remember, we learned about special ER nouns a couple of chapters ago. We learned, for instance, wir, V-I-R, wir, weri, which means man or hero. We learned about field, ager, agree, which, again, both of these are special nouns because instead of the US that you would expect them to end in masculine nominative singular, instead they end in an ER. And so that's just a special form that you kind of have to be aware of. Consequently, we also have some special adjectives that, again, in the masculine nominative singular, end in er. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. We have the word for free, liber, libera, liberum. This word means free, and if you'll remember, we normally expect our masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, or excuse me, adjectives, to end in us, a, and And we have the a and in the feminine neuter, but in the masculine, we're missing that us. That's what makes this special. These adjectives, these just few, there's not a whole lot of them, but they end in masculine nominative singular, end in us. In er, not the us. Sorry about that. Now, the rest of the endings are exactly as you'd expect. E, o, e, orum, is, os, is in our genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative endings, singular and plural. E, orum, is, os, is. The E, what I want you to note here is that E in the stem is kept all the way through. So you have liber, liberi, liberum, libero, liberum, libero, liber, liberi, etc. So that E is in all of the forms. You can see in the feminine, you have libera, liberi, liberi, etc. Neuter, liberum, liberi, libero, etc. So this particular noun, this particular ER adjective, the E stays in place. However, there are some where the E drops out. And let's look at this other example on the right of the screen. Pulcher, pulcra, pulcrum. This adjective means beautiful. And you can see that the masculine has an E, but notice that the feminine neuter does not. If you continue to decline this adjective all the way down, you'll notice in the genitive form for masculine, it goes to pulchri. The E has dropped out. The E has gone away. So you end up with pulchri, and then it's that stem that you'll have throughout. Pulcro, pulcrum, pulcro. Now, that stem, P-U-L-C-H-R, will hold throughout feminine and neuter forms. Now, there is one exception to this. If you'll notice the masculine vocative singular, if you remember our vocative rule, whatever's in the nominative needs to be in the vocative. So here you have pulcher, you do have an E because that's what you have in the masculine nominative singular, pulcher with the ER. But other than that exception, there are no E's in any of these other forms for beautiful. They all are missing the E. So for liber, you keep them, and for pulcher, it drops away. Let me just show this to you, this little chart here. This will highlight the differences. It's going to pop. There we go. Some adjectives, like liber, keep the E in the stem. And then some adjectives, like pulcher, drop the E in the stem. Again, with the exception of that masculine nominative and vocative singular. So those are your special ER adjectives. I would encourage you to take some more time to go through this. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Make sure you study your vocabulary. You'll have a quiz later on. Y'all have a great day.